Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a poor man. He was tired of his poverty and would often wonder, when will my life change? When will I escape this misery? One day, he heard that a wise monk had arrived in a nearby village. The monk was said to have answers to any question a person might ask. Eager to find a solution to his problems, the man decided to go meet the monk. To reach the other village, he had to cross a dense forest. As he walked through the forest, night began to fall, and it got very dark. That's when he saw a large, beautiful house in the middle of the forest. He approached it and politely asked the owner if he could stay the night. The man who owned the house agreed and welcomed him in. Curious, the house owner asked, "Where are you going so late at night?" The poor man replied, "I'm going to see the monk in the next village. I want to ask him a question about my life." The house owner nodded and said, "Please ask one question for me too. My daughter is 20 years old and has never spoken a word in her life. She is mute. Ask the monk, when will she start speaking?" The poor man agreed and left early the next morning. As he continued on his way, he came across an old wizard holding a magical staff. The wizard looked at him and asked, "Where are you going, young man?" The man replied, "To meet a monk. I want to ask him a question." The wizard said, "Then please ask him a question for me as well. I have lived long enough and wish to go to heaven. Ask him, when will I be able to enter heaven?" The man agreed and continued his journey. A little while later, he saw a giant turtle resting under a tree. The turtle looked at him and asked, "Where are you going?" The man replied, "To see the monk." The turtle said, "Please ask the monk one more question for me. I have always dreamed of becoming a dragon. Ask him, when will I finally become a dragon?" The man nodded again and finally reached the monk. The monk was sitting under a tree in deep meditation. The man respectfully greeted him and asked, "May I ask you a few questions?" The monk gently opened his eyes and said, "Yes, but you may only ask 3 questions." The man was stunned. "Only 3? But I have 4, 1 of mine and 3 from others." He stood there thinking, "My own question is about poverty, but that feels small compared to what these other people are going through. I'll ask their questions first." He took a deep breath and asked his first question, "When will the turtle become a dragon?" The monk replied, "When he removes his shell and lets go of his protection, he will transform into a dragon." Then he asked the second question, "When will the wizard go to heaven?" The monk answered, "When he passes on his staff to someone else, his time will come and he will rise to heaven." And finally, he asked the last question, "When will the girl find her voice?" The monk said, "When she meets the one who truly understands her heart, her voice will awaken." The poor man bowed in gratitude. Even though his own question remained unanswered, he began his return journey, walking the same path back. On his way, he first met the turtle. The man shared what the monk had said, "You will become a dragon when you remove your shell." The turtle hesitated, but trusted the monk's wisdom. Slowly it began to slide out of its shell, and right before the man's eyes, it transformed into a mighty dragon. As the old shell cracked open, dozens of shining pearls rolled out onto the ground. The dragon smiled and gifted all the pearls to the man in gratitude, then flew away into the sky. The man was amazed. He picked up the pearls and moved ahead. He next met the old wizard and told him. The monk said, "You will go to heaven when you give your staff to someone else." The wizard thought for a moment, then handed the staff to the poor man. The very moment he did, his body glowed with light, and his spirit peacefully rose into the sky, free, happy, and finally at peace. The poor man was now carrying a magical staff, and a bag full of pearls. At last, he returned to the big house in the forest and met the kind man who had let him stay. The man asked eagerly, "Did you ask the monk my question?" The traveler smiled and replied, "Yes. He said your daughter will speak the day she finds someone who truly understands her." The man paused in surprise, then slowly turned to his daughter. She looked at the traveler, and their eyes met. For the first time, she opened her mouth and softly said, "Thank you." Her father was shocked. Overjoyed, he embraced her and said, "You are the one. You truly understand her heart. Will you marry my daughter?" The poor man nodded humbly. The two were married in the presence of the village. The man who once had nothing, no money, no voice, no answers, now had a loving wife, a bag of pearls, a magical staff, and a wise heart. Moral of the story: sometimes we receive more in life when we care about others first. That poor man never got to ask his own question, but because of his sacrifice and selflessness, the answers he gave others changed his own life. He gave up one thing, but gained everything. When you stop only thinking about your own problems and start helping others, your own path becomes clear.